Hello everyone, this is Redash, and today we will be showing the first official demo of our patch 6.0 StarCraft mod. This mod has plenty of new units like the Herc here to reinvent the meta and make the StarCraft 2 melee experience fresh and new again. Let's start out with the new units in this video. Here we have the Herc, a reworked version of the original Herc in the Heart of the Swarm trailer. It benefits from Marine Stim Pack and combat shields. As you can see, they gain a visual indicator of when combat shield is ready, and with their stim, they are quite formidable against light targets. However, in a big fight like this against ranged units, they will still suffer heavy casualties. They also make great early game harassment units, and can be made instead of a Reaper as long as you have a tech lab. We have a new starport unit called the TAC Fighter. This is a small, strafing attacking unit that deals mid to heavy damage depending on its upgrades, and can also use a boost ability to increase its movement and attack speed. It also has an energy shield in which its energy can absorb damage. Keep in mind that this energy is needed for its boost ability, meaning that you will have to choose between extra durability or extra damage. This TAC Fighter is exceptional at chasing enemies down, worker harass, and dealing with small clumps of enemy detachments that have little to no support. However, keep in mind that these TAC Fighters are very vulnerable to AoE spells and damage, and are also much weaker at dealing with heavily armored targets. Next up, we have the Battlecruiser, and we have taken some inspiration from the original StarCraft 2 trailer video, giving the Battlecruiser 3 possible upgrades, each being mutually exclusive. Today, let's showcase the Plasma Barrage. This is a variation of the original spell showed in the trailer. It can target units, and after a fairly long charge-up, fire a barrage of lasers at all nearby units. Keep in mind that this spell can be microed against by simply splitting units or pulling back the unit being targeted. It also does not do too much damage, meaning that anything other than light units will not be affected as much. A unit we have reworked is the Cyclone. We have removed the lock-on ability and instead allowed it to attack while moving. This gives it a similar role to the Diamondback in the campaign, allowing interesting new possibilities for micro opportunities and run-by harassment. We've also added a new permanent upgrade morph to the Cyclone. This unit is called the Penetrator, and as it's morphing in, you can see that the Cyclone will permanently be upgraded to this new unit. The Penetrator is a tank version of the Laser Drill. It has a powerful beam and 2 passives, each making it powerful in combat situations against large armored ground units. It has a long charge-up time for its attack, but its attack damage increases over time, making it a powerful damage dealer against single targets. The Penetrator also has neither armored or light attributes for its plating due to its ambiguous armor passive. This allows it to combat well against Stalker or Mortal comps. However, it can still be destroyed if it is in small enough numbers. The Cyclone will still require a tech lab, and while we're making more of these to upgrade into penetrators, we will show another unit we have reworked. The Liberator now has a different form of anti-air attack inspired by the Valkyrie in StarCraft 1. These attacks are now rapid fire but have a smaller area of effect, making it effective against Mutalisk comps and even carrier interceptors, giving the Liberator an exciting new role in Terran mech comps. It also will still benefit heavily from airship upgrades, and it does increase damage against light units. Against the Mutaclump, the Liberator will now fare better than before because of its heavy attack speed, while also the lower splash radius will make it easier to micro against on the Zerg side. As you can see, the Liberators do not just win a battle by default, and there is still micro required on both ends. Now that we have a reinforcement of penetrators, we will see just how effective they are at dealing with mech targets. Because of their ambiguous plating, the Immortals and Stalkers do not do their bonus damage against them. And as you can see, they will easily clean up a force like this. Now let's move on to the Zerg side of things. The Zerg has two new units, the first of being the Chitra. This is a lore unit, a smaller Hydralisk type of unit that deals massive damage against psionics and increased damage against armored units. It is fairly low range and fairly fast moving, but gains significantly increased range against psionic targets, making it an incredible counter in the mid to late game against Ghosts, High Templar, Archons, Ravens, and many other psionic spellcasters. However, it cannot hit air units unless they are psionic. To deal with late game battlecruiser and carrier comps, the Zerg has a new Mytoscarab unit. This unit has a passive which reduces attack speed by 10% each time it attacks, stacking up to 10 times. What makes this passive important is that its effects are permanent. This allows the Mytoscarab to force out engagements that would generally lead to stalemates in the late game. It is also a very slow unit, so it cannot get free value without facing damage. However, as you can see, its heavy anti-armor damage makes it formidable against battlecruisers. And as you can see, the battlecruiser's attack speed is being lowered dramatically by the Hardening Acid passive. One final unit that the Zerg has that has been changed dramatically is the Swarm Host. If we create a few, you will see that the Swarm Host now has a slightly different role. The Swarm Host now has a Locust Hanger. Holding up to 2 Locusts in reserve, the Swarm Host can now send these out at long range, almost like a carrier. These Locusts will attack target units while the Swarm Host can continue moving on. Once the Locusts have died, the Swarm Host's hanger is empty and can be replenished by using their Rebirth Locust spell. The spell costs HP though, damaging the Swarm Host and making it a limited charge ability that can only be used a certain amount of times before the Swarm Host is damaged to the point where it can be easily killed by enemy counterforces. However, this new change will make the Swarm Host a more important unit to Zerg mid to late game comps, and we are thrilled to see the Swarm Host have a more interesting role in the Zerg arsenal. Finally, the Protoss. The Protoss has a new gateway unit that has an upgrade in the Cyber Core. This is called the Repulsor. It is a heavy damage, medium range unit whose attacks cost energy. This unit can attack while moving, making it a formidable damage dealer in the early game. This unit also does incredible damage against structures. However, keep in mind attacking structures will burn through its energy reserve quickly, making it vulnerable to counterattacks. This is why it has the Hold Fire spell similar to Ghosts. The Repulsor cannot attack air units, however, making it vulnerable to counterattacks from air units like the Void Ray or the previously shown TAC Fighter. The second Protoss unit that has a change is the Sentry. The Sentry has a new spell called Energize, which increases the time scale of a target unit by 25% for 10 seconds. This includes attack speed, movement speed, energy regen, and even production speed on target structures. This pairs well with strong and very powerful Protoss units like the Archon, Immortal, or any number of Skytoss units. This allows more interesting micro and more opportunities for the Sentry to be useful in Protoss versus Protoss matchups and Protoss versus Terran matchups. As you can see here, the Energize spell makes the Immortals attack faster, allowing them to get considerably more damage done on these Thors. However, the Energize spell is not overtuned, making it still counterable by EMP or simply having superior forces. The second new Protoss unit is a robotics unit. This is called the Singularity, and it is a single-use unit that can spawn a vortex-like spell to clump up enemy units. However, the spell does cost energy, so in the meantime, we will also create the tech structures required to show the final unit change, the Mothership. The Mothership now has increased costs to make up for its new increases in attack capabilities and more powerful spells. However, first, let's showcase the Singularity. The Singularity goes well with area of effect units like the Archon, and is excellent at striking air units or clumps of smaller biological units like Marines or Hydralisks. The Singularity targets a spot on the ground and creates a vortex, destroying its hole in the process. This vortex will clump up units, allowing area of effect to be more effective than in usual combat situations. Keep in mind that this vortex-like spell requires energy, meaning that the Singularity can be EMP'd or feedbacked. In addition, it can also be interference matrixed, making counterplay very possible. Finally, we have the Mothership. This Mothership has a different attack form than the normal Mothership. It does less damage, but attacks in an AoE effect, attacking all nearby units. Because of this, it's much weaker to single-target heavy damage dealers like the Void Ray, meaning that the Mothership cannot contest these. However, the Mothership is much more formidable against large clumps of small units, in large part due to its new attack and also its increase in armor. The Mothership has one last change, and that is to its Time Warp, a completely reimagined version of what this spell can do. The Time Warp is still something that is placed directly on the ground and forms an AoE. However, instead of slowing enemy movements, this Time Warp slows enemy missiles. As you can see in these mutas, the missiles are stopping midway through the Time Warp and being slowed down to almost zero movement speed. However, once the Time Warp ends, the missiles continue on their very way. This allows an exciting new feature in which attacks can be delayed, allowing the Mothership to get more value than usual, while still causing damage once the Time Warp expires. These missiles can be dodged with recall, allowing exciting new possibilities for Micro. We are thrilled of these changes that we have made to the meta and also to overall gameplay. Keep in mind that these changes are just the beta,